I'm Alex Hirsch, the voice of Bill Cipher.
And I'm Shion, and I wrote this episode.
I'm Rob Renzetti, and I'm watching this episode.
And you're the audience, and you're enjoying this episode. So this is Sock Opera. This is one of my favorite episodes of the whole show.
It's
I
a
don't
great
know how
one.
you guys feel.
Love it.
I love it.
I think this was one of these episodes where there's a lot of stories that were kind of planned out, or something that was on a wish list of something we'd always kind of wanted to do, and maybe there was a big plan for. And then there's other episodes that really just come out of the improvisation process of just like, we have a space on the calendar, we need to come up with something.
Yeah.
All we really knew going into this, and please correct me if I'm remembering wrong, but my recollection of the early days of this story was we were coming off the heels of Bunker, and we had this idea that there was going to be a laptop, and we knew there needed to be some episode investigating that.
Yeah.
I think that was the first thread we pulled.
Yeah. And it was like just having the kids look through a laptop would be boring.
Pretty boring.
So we
Yeah.
were like, okay, we need to make an obstacle, make it like high stakes obstacle in order to get them to access this precious information, and also like not be stuck in the beginning of the season being like, oh, well, here are all of the author's Word documents, including like his identity.
Right.
Well, we needed to one of our mission statements for season 2 was season 1. I actually remember early on, me and Michael Rianda had a whiteboard that said season 1, season fun. Season 2, season continuity. And what we imagined was we were going to really try to thread the needle on like there is an ongoing mystery, and that means you need more clues, you need more misdirects, red herrings, you need to step it out. And as we were working on all these stories, we were trying to find ways to connect them. So we knew Bunker's going to end with finding this laptop. The laptop potentially was going to lead to a story. Do you remember this? We considered this episode where it was going to be McGucket going in a submarine underwater.
Yeah,
you had worked on that one, right?
This was that was like part of Society for the Blind.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, that's when we're
first.
trying to crack that.
And that didn't work out.
No.
It didn't work out underwater.
We were trying to. It was like, okay, we're going to use this laptop to go on an adventure, and it's maybe going to be a McGucket thing, and maybe go underwater, and then that it wasn't quite connecting, and then we figured out Blind Eye, but this didn't lead to that, so we were like, okay, this episode, ultimately, we're going to use this idea of the laptop as a way to start the adventure and as a way to create stakes for Dipper, but not really as being what the story is about.
Right.
And I had done this just big pile of sketches when the season began of just Mabel in a bunch of crazy situations. One of them was her dressed as a bumblebee, being the mascot of Buzzum's brand Bumblebee cereal. One of them was her like roller skating. One of her was being attacked by 100 socks. And that 100 socks drawing I had on my desk. And I was like, something with socks, guys? Can we figure this?
Yeah.
Figure out
No,
something with socks?
where did the idea for Bill to possess Dipper come from? Because it feels like something we would have had for a while, but I honestly don't remember the origin of that idea.
Shion, do you recall the origin of that?
I don't know, because I remember when we were cracking this story, like I got bit by a spider, and then like I remember I was in a meeting and I suddenly thought that my throat was closing up because I'd gone to some weirdo doctor in Burbank that I just found on Google, and
Yeah, didn't you have to go to the emergency room suddenly?
because I didn't know like I had a reaction to amoxicillin, which is what they gave me for the spider bite.
Oh, yeah.
Which they really didn't need to do because
They overdosed you and then almost killed you.
So I was like, oh my God, I'm dying. And then I left.
The show is dangerous.
Yeah.
I went to the emergency room after a night at work too, when we ordered something and I got something on this tuna steak that I all of a sudden had this weird allergic reaction. You remember that, Alex? I like all of a sudden was beet red.
So here's like what a terrible boss I am. The meeting probably went like this. It probably went, I walk in and I'm like, guys, this sock opera episode's not socky enough. Shion, make it better. And Shion was like, and I'm like,
kind of accurate.
You're coughing in agreement? All right, peace out, fix it later.
You saw my face and you were like, your face, what's wrong with your face? What's going on? And I was like, I think I'm dying. Like I was like quiet the whole meeting.
Yeah, I'm dying for us to get this episode done, all right?
And then I left and I came back and you guys had figured it out. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, all right, cool. My job here is done.
That's a good work method.
Yeah.
Well, it was something where we were trying to figure out how to engage with the mystery of it all, and I don't remember actually who suggested the idea of Dipper being possessed by Bill. And like the moment I heard that, I was possessed of two equal and opposite emotions. One, which is that's the most fun, cool thing I've ever heard, and that's going to make a great episode. And the other one being like, is it too much too soon?
Yeah.
Are we giving away the game?
Right.
And I think sometimes, and we talked about this in other episodes, like you'll have a great idea and you'll wonder, should I wait? And it's like in television, a bird in the hand is worth two. Like when you got it, try it out.
Yeah.
And I think Bill is a really hard character to write, and it's hard to figure out how to make the most of a character who doesn't have a physical body, who just exists in people's mind. And he was always conceived, particularly in season 1, as being... He was designed to torment Dipper. Like, Dipper's a character who wants answers more than anything. So before he was even a villain, he was, what if there's a character who has all the answers and dangles them in front of Dipper just to make him insane?
Right.
And this episode, unlike Dreamscapers, we actually get to see Bill do what he was designed for, which was drive Dipper crazy.
And also, like, there was we had hidden Bill in little places before he actually appeared season 1. And people had picked up on that. And then when he appeared, there was just like this, already he had a fan base before he ever hit the screen for real. And people were so crazy for him. And it was like, we'd brought him back. We'd only used him once. Mm-hmm. And people were just waiting for him to come back. And we felt like, well, maybe it's time we give the audience some more Bill.
Yeah, it was like the internet knew that he was going to be the big villain before we did. Because I remember we had a meeting where we were like, is Bill going to be the big bad? Or are we going to come up with a new one?
And we explored other options, and nothing felt bigger than this guy who's already got his tendrils in the minds of the characters and the fans.
Yeah. It was like nothing was as fun and serving of that purpose.
Well, and I think that's part of why people like Bill so much is that, yes, he's cruel and insane, but he's clearly enjoying himself.
Yeah,
and that always makes for a good villain.
What kind of crazy stuff he's going to do.
Like this.
So one of my kind of rules for Bill, just sort of instinctively, is every time he arrives, he very quickly does something that Shion will hate. Every time Bill arrives, he will quickly do something you don't expect. This was one of the theories about characters is that introductions are really important, and that in the way a character introduces themselves, you can basically project their entire personality. Mm-hmm. Like a famous example of that is Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory. The guy who plays Willy Wonka, Gene Wilder. He demanded that Willy Wonka limps out of the factory and then does a little twirl. And so from the very first time you see him, you're like, wait, so is he old? Is he young?
Right.
Is he in pain? Is he in charge? Is he trolling
He's just messing with everybody?
Yeah, and that's what he's doing.
And I thought about that a lot with character interactions, and particularly with Bill. And even if it's shoehorned in, here's a screaming face for no reason. It's like, okay, always be on edge when this guy arrives.
No. I remember Maple Juice. We had notes about what liquids were allowed to be in Maple Juice. It was no coffee. That was out. No markers. We couldn't put markers.
They were so concerned about that fictional juice.
Someone would try and make Maple Juice for real. I'm sure somebody has.
Well, actually, that's not true. There's this company that does a food truck at New York Comic Con every year.
Oh, right.
Called Fiction Foods, and they have people vote on the fiction food they want to eat the most, and people voted on Maple Juice. So they had to invent what Maple Juice would be.
Yeah.
I think it was just
I can't believe I missed that.
Soda with just an entire bucket's worth of pixie sticks poured in.
Okay, that makes sense. That's not a bad idea. I like this. I like that idea that Candy is going to plot against Mabel to steal this man.
I think this might be Mabel's, in the whole series, her last, an episode that's all about a crush of the week.
Yeah.
We felt like, that you can only do that story so many times without it getting old.
Right.
And we thought what would be really different about this one and make it valuable is that she kind of notices, by the end of it, she realizes, in my crush obsession, I'm kind of crushing everything around me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that arc for her that Society for the Blind Eye ended with, where she's the last time she deals with romantic stuff is her deciding to not let it affect her. And I felt like that was really real. Not this episode, but great.
Well, but this tears it up.
Coming up. Yeah, this episode tears it up, and we tease it up, and we reply to it, and
This is the first time that Mabel chooses to sabotage what she believes is an actual chance.
Yeah, and she actually has a really good chance with Gabe, more so than anyone that she's encountered probably. She pulls together a very impressive show.
Well, and that was my other favorite thing about this episode is, coming up with a clear setup that has personal stakes but results in a funny situation is that is the gold of what you're trying to do in a sitcom structure. And that's why most sitcoms are built around lies, because somebody has to pull it off. Mabel's sort of over brag, I can throw the world's biggest puppet show by tomorrow. And then she actually has to do it. Puts her in a place where she's just going to do the most fun, creative, Mabel-y things.
Right.
It's rare that you have a setup like that and something like this Bill thing that are both so clear and high stakes.
Yeah.
And by the second act of this episode, I am like so invested. Like I've sort of casually seen it on TV, and then like I'll think like, oh, I remember that, and then I can't stop watching.
Well, I was rewatching the whole season again in anticipation of these commentaries. Like this episode, I just enjoyed it so much because everything's up and running. You know who these characters are. They're really expressing themselves in a great way. I mean, by that I mean they're acting like themselves in the most pure way they can, and just you can tell that this stuff matters to Dipper, and her play matters to Mabel. And you understand why each one of them's doing what they're doing, even though
they're
the
both
decisions
in love,
are really
right?
bad.
Like,
yeah.
Mabel's in love with Gabe. Dipper's in love with the author.
Yeah.
And they're both willing to do something crazy to get closer to that thing. This was the hardest season. This was the hardest scene in the entire episode. This went through changes and changes, and
So
even
many.
changes up until the animatic, because Dipper's we think of him as a smart character.
Yeah.
And the idea that he would ever agree to make a deal with Bill, originally he did agree to. He's like, all right, you can possess me, like for answers. Like there was
Right.
going to be some kind of, and it was hard to believe. And if a character makes a choice that is, against theirs or other characters' interests for a bad reason, you hate them. And so there was just kept being layers of adjustment to this to make it, okay, what would it take to get Dipper to make a deal with Bill? One, he would have to not understand the rules of the deal. He's been tricked. He thinks he's just giving a puppet. He didn't know it was himself. Classic genie rules, right? You get what you wish for in a way you didn't expect. Number two, there's a literal ticking clock that just started, which if he doesn't do it by now, he's going to lose all this. Number three, Bill rightfully points out that Mabel has been kind of not sacrificing for him, and he maybe needs another ally right now. And it took all of those to believe that Dipper might do this and not hate Dipper.
Right. And also that he was sleep deprived. That was the other
Yes.
physical
Number
part
four.
of it.
Yeah, and actually, you'll notice that Dipper blinks right before Bill arrives, and that's our way of suggesting that that countdown might not have even existed.
Right.
Like, that Bill only shows up in your dream, and he usually comes in when you've fallen asleep. So if Bill is there, you're asleep.
Yeah. I love the idea that we just get rid of the laptop, and it's like, nope, that wasn't the key.
Yep. Well,
Nope.
guess what? You don't get to find out anything.
Oh, and that's another great. That's kind of like the Screaming Head. Is Bill arrives, he will change something. He'll change the status quo.
Yeah.
That was also another happy accident up there. Is that window that Dipper is in with the Bill window, that like red stained glass. That was designed by Ian for the first episode. And we didn't even know if Bill's going to be important, but now we got to stage it, so Bill literally comes through it. It feels like we planned that all along. We did not. It was an accident.
Yeah, in the first draft of this, I had Bill Dipper like playing the knife game with his hands, and we had to take that out.
Yeah, we got close to it.
We did.
We're always trying to figure out how can we get the spirit of the thing. This this scene is exactly from Ghost Dad. I don't know if you've seen the movie Ghost Dad.
I somehow have missed it.
Vessel to possess, you're basically a ghost.
Oh, hey, Dipper. There you are.
What up, dude?
Zeus, Wendy, help me, help me.
We're headed to the theater.
There's a lot of discussion with the artist about what sort of Dipper's ghost form would look like. I think they did a really good job of sort of the color on him, so you feel like he's Dipper. This is so creepy.
This is great.
Robert Ryan Corey did that weird face with those teeth. Whenever teeth are that detailed, you can thank Robert Ryan Corey.
Bill, gotta get my body back.
The settings in this episode are so fun too, like the old timey theater.
Yeah. We went through a million titles for theater, didn't we? We had real trouble.
landed on gold.
We really had trouble clearing anything with legal, I think, and with they just wouldn't, because there's so many theaters in the United States. Like, you think you're coming up with the original name, like, nope, there's an actual theater. Name that. You cannot name your theater that.
This was such a good scenario, having Dipper's the most anxious guy in the world, and him having to watch somebody take over his body and say everything that he would never say,
and kind of make a success of it too. Like, he's instantly welcomed by Susan and Wendy. They don't seem to see anything, barely anything wrong going on with this creature inside of the Dipper's body.
Gotta give some major shout outs to, I believe, didn't Matt Chapman do some demos for this?
Yeah. Matt Chapman did some demos. Wrote some lyrics.
Yeah, like I remember I'm the mayor and here's an award, like was definitely like a Matt Chapman.
Yeah.
Who's that girl with the pig in the braces? That's the first thing, and he's loving it. Look at that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, her
perfect.
plan is working.
I want to see, like, this is much better than the show Gabe was putting on in the library.
I know.
This is worlds above it. Like, she's too good for him, both professionally and personally.
Yeah, well, kudos to him. He wasn't threatened by a talented lady.
That's true.
That always makes me laugh.
Yeah.
So stupid. I love it.
This is perhaps the cruelest joke that I enjoy coming up, where Bill Dipper calls Grenda a monster.
There was a lot of people saying like, so wait, are they suggesting that she's also possessed by some kind of monster? It's like, no, Bill is just a jerk.
Yeah.
He's just calling people monsters because he's an awful, awful character. I don't remember. Where did this come from? The idea that Dipper possesses a sock.
I don't know. Do you remember this, Shion?
I don't know. We were like, we have to find a way to get him to communicate with Mabel somehow. And so the logic was that Bill, even though he doesn't have an earthly form, was able to possess Dipper like a puppet. So like maybe if Dipper concentrates really hard, he could do the same thing with the sock.
It's so good. It's such. I love it. Like when I watch this episode, like kind of that's the moment where I'm like, this is making the most of the premise. Like you'd think that the idea of an episode that's half about bodily possession and half about a sock puppet sock opera have nothing to do with each other, and like they fit so perfectly.
Connected.
And it's like the perfect mix of, like, I've talked in other commentaries about how Gravity Falls is a specific tone, and some episodes to me really are in the pocket of what the tone should be, and other episodes aren't. This to me is like the perfect tone of Gravity Falls. Like it's both as scary and as funny, as cute and as weird, as character based and as insane as they're supposed to be. And there's episodes I love that are way goofier than this, and there's episodes I love that are way more like serious. But like this really feels like what I always wanted the show to feel like.
Yeah, and it gets that Oregon feel too. I don't really know how to describe it. Maybe it's the like old timey theater and
like the windy day at the beginning. There's a lot of you get the sense of a little bit of a sense of weather, which we don't often do.
And Dipper late at night up on the roof of the shack, you know, in the middle of the night. There's a lot of atmosphere.
That you drive a biscotti joke. That's a Shion joke, right?
Yeah.
That's a great line. That's a perfect Mabel reaction.
Forever?
I'm sorry. It looks funny when you're mad.
Yeah.
This is obviously inspired by Kermit.
Yeah.
The weird faces that Kermit makes. In particular, the really early Jim Henson like commercials that he would do, where it really was practically a sock, but he gets so much expression out of just mashing his fist inside.
I have a very soft spot for Muppets, and it always boggled my mind that Josh Weinstein did not care for them. It's a big point of contention. We talk about it even to this day. Nothing can melt my ice heart but the Muppets, so it's very confusing.
You just hear the 3 banjo strum chords of Rainbow Connection, and suddenly you're a child again.
Crying,
That's good
weeping,
Josh
softly.
is just like, get me out of here.
Come on. There must be a way to get Dipper's body back.
Oh, but why would you want to do that?
Bill Dipper. Bipper.
Shh. You wouldn't want to ruin the show. Whoops!
Ah!
It's slipping. How's about you hand that book over?
No way. This is Dipper's. I've never...
I think Chris Houghton storyboarded this, did a fantastic job. The art direction on this, where he's, surrounded by this like neon red light and the fog machine from the show, and he gives Mabel a very clear choice. And he actually thinks, my concept is that Bill genuinely believes that Mabel's kind of like him. He sees Mabel as a chaos agent. Like, Mabel has got a little bit of a seed of anarchy in her. She's a little bit selfish. She likes to have fun at whatever cost. And Bill is all those things times a billion. So he thinks when he lays it all out for her, like, how about instead of being lame, you do something fun and crush whoever you want in the process? He thinks that's going to go over. And he's not wrong in seeing that side in Mabel, but Mabel is a better person than Bill Cipher. This outfit is a reference to Night of the Hunter, classic movie about this terrifying preacher. Seemed really appropriate for a terrifying Bill form.
Just the idea that we got to have Bill or possessed Dipper dress up as a preacher was a fantastic coup on our part.
Well, it took a lot of figuring out, right? All these pieces, the idea that he wants the journal, but Mabel's using the journal as a prop in the book. They're swearing on it for the wedding, and so he has to dress as the preacher to get it. So you get him in this awesome outfit during the sequence, and we've set up that Dipper's really tired, so Mabel can defeat him by just making him run around in circles, and he's a being of light, so he has no experience with bodies. It all really clicked together. A huge amount of work from everybody involved for this plot. But
crazy watching this again, how much story we packed into this thing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, and then there was this turn and this turn and this turn.
Yes! I'm in my own body! And it's just as underwhelming.
Poor Dipper.
I know how Dipper, like being 12.
human.
all I felt was like a brain that was way better than my lame body, and I had to just wait for my body to somehow be useful, and it never was. To this day. This might have been one of the biggest fights we ever had over the entire course of the series, was over this music cue.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, with who?
With SMP?
The forces at B felt that using Ave Maria might be seen as offensive to somebody, as it is a religious song. My argument was I'd seen it in a Tostino's pizza roll commercial, and that like when you watch it's at this point colloquially, like when you see people in football and you need to make the pass, you call it a Hail Mary, but nobody is like, oh, how could you say Hail Mary? Like my point was like this cue has been transformed.
It's been co-opted so
to the point where nobody would no one would ever think
that. But again, we're not making fun of that song. We're using that song to make fun of the character that we're
That's
watching.
100% correct.
Yeah.
Is that like to Gabe, the most pure thing in the world is puppets, and to see a puppet be destroyed is akin to a religious experience.
Yeah.
Like the joke is Gabe loves puppets this much.
Yeah.
And I had a hunch that if we could talk them into letting us do it, no one would have a problem with it, and no one did.
Right.
A lot of people thought it was the funniest scene in the
It's
episode.
really
it
funny.
always cracked me up.
It's really funny.
Well, one of them served.
Also like that Mabel's sweater has actual yarn hair
Yeah.
of the unicorn.
Yeah. We usually tried to theme Mabel's sweater in some way to the episode that we were experiencing, if we can't suggest something.
Mystery twin.
And this is kind of Mabel and Dipper like at their best. Is like Mabel is realizing that in this instance she was just really ignoring Dipper, and the fact that she didn't care about the journal doesn't mean that he didn't care. If he
Right.
cares, then it matters, you know.
Are you going to talk
Oh, I
about
love
this?
this
The real
part.
puppets at the end? Alex, how did this come about?
I mean, we all love Muppets. Shion loves Muppets, and I wanted to see if we could get this in. And me and Matt Chapman are controlling those two. We're both under. That's really close to the ground. We're contorting our bodies so you can't see our heads. Like we were both sore for like a week after that.
I
But
like this. I like the ending.
we always want to do a little extra if we can.